An episode so nice, we had to do it twice. So we went through the 2020 draft last episode. Thank you for joining us, #Nation. We went through the 2020 draft, and we kind of played a little game. Paul's a genius and a savant sometimes when he talks about these things. So what we did was we examined the 3 picks above the player that the Buffalo Bills drafted and the 3 picks after and said, okay, did the Bills really make out? Because it seems like Buffalo Bills fans, Bills Mafia, #Nation, we just accept that Brandon Beane is a draft guru. However, let's kind of take a little bit of a dive. And now, obviously, for the purposes of just having fun and examining this, it's a fun little activity to do. We're not really examining the systems that these guys went into, but we are examining the current teams that were assembled prior to the draft. You can check out the last episode we did draft for 2020. Now we're going to do the 2019 draft.
This is a fun one.
This is gonna be
right. That's a fun one.
I know.
So we all know that Ed Oliver goes 9th overall, right? So examining the 3 players ahead of Oliver, you have Daniel Jones, quarterback, went to the Giants. Josh Allen went to the Jacksonville. Not that Josh Allen.
Not that
TJ Hawkinson goes to Detroit.
Okay.
So of those 3 players, right, if we just take a look at those 3 players, Daniel Jones probably off the board for you, right?
Yeah, since you drafted Allen the year before.
Yeah, okay. So Daniel Jones is off the board. Josh Allen, linebacker. He's really not a linebacker, but
I would. I
defensive
would.
end.
Oh,
He's defensive end. What does that make you feel, right? If you drafted Josh Allen in 18 instead of Ed Oliver.
19.
Sorry, in 19. If you're drafting Josh Allen in 19 instead of Ed Oliver, how do you feel about the team in 2020?
Oh, so the team in 2020 is my draft. So the second year of Allen and Edmonds together. Oh,
yeah. How do you feel about that?
I think that makes Matt Milano expendable.
Oh, that's an interesting point. Because if you look at that 2020 draft, we talked about Epinesa, right? Is Epinesa still the pick?
No, because I think you could put Allen in that spot, number 1. Number 2, you're not signing AJ Klein. Because
that's
you have
an interesting
Milano
point.
And Allen. But the problem with it is, what are you going to do in the front? Now, not having Oliver does Star Lotulelei reassess his opt-out?
I mean, I go at this point, right? So if we go
speculation, I know, but
if we go back and look at Oliver, right? Oliver made a ton of sense at the time because of the potential that was there. And I still love the Ed Oliver pick. I think he is very underrated as a player in Buffalo. I don't think he gets the credit that he really deserves. With that being said, right, let's not forget Ed Oliver was behind Quinnen Williams. Quinnen Williams was the number 1 defensive tackle on everybody's board. It was clear as day, right? After Ed Oliver, you get Christian Wilkins, which is a nice player.
Yes.
Christian Wilkins is a nice player. Dexter Lawrence.
Yep.
Jeffrey Simmons. And then Jerry Tillery goes all the way down to 28.
A lot of guys, man.
That's what I mean.
Lot.
So how important was Ed Oliver versus those other guys?
Which means what are you saying is would I've taken any of those other guys as well?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you look at Christian Wilkins plays in a 3-4.
Yeah.
Dexter Lawrence in the Giants plays in 3-4. Simmons 3-4.
Which is interesting, right? Because Oliver was primarily a nose tackle in college. He was drafted to not play nose.
I know,
right?
And
isn't that interesting?
I completely lied to everybody at the start of the episode because I said I wasn't going to talk scheme. But no, my point is this. No, what I'm saying is but Oliver was that guy that the Buffalo Bills look for to say, listen, he could play in any type of defense you need him to. And the fact is, the first year at Oliver, I know if people want to be down on the pick or whatnot, he was actually trying to set himself up to show teams that he could play both defensive tackle and defensive end. So he came in lighter than he should have into the 2019 season.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So this year's Ed Oliver, I think, is the more Ed Oliver that you saw, but he was still acclimating his body to the pros and acclimating his mind. So I think the Bills made out in that, but I mean, to have Josh Allen. Oof.
Yeah. Well, and let's look at the 3 players behind him, right?
So what you had is Pittsburgh took Devin Bush with the 10th pick and Jonah Williams at guard for Cincinnati, which they needed lineman help. And then the Green Bay took Rashawn Gary at, he's the linebacker, but he's more of an edge guy. But Bush is the only guy that stands out to me there. You just signed a bunch of different linemen that offseason to try to patchwork your team. Feliciano, Quentin Spain, before this draft had happened. So, okay, hey, we're going to go with what we have. Like Ty Nsekhe was signed, I believe, too. So I think Devin Bush is the only guy I think I would have taken a flyer on.
So first off, I feel, again, a lot different about – I'm curious, right? So let's say you draft Allen or Bush the year after drafting Tremaine Edmonds, right?
Yeah.
How different do you feel about this defense?
Oh my God.
I think that's like the ultimate question here, right?
I think it's
I feel like you missed by drafting Ed Oliver, you put need again, like you needed interior help, right? You needed interior help. So you drafted need early.
Yes.
But Devin Bush and Josh Allen next to Tremaine and Matt would be pretty scary.
Yeah, but who's going to keep bodies off of those guys? That's my only question.
Well, and they did struggle with that.
And they struggled.
They did struggle with that.
Here's the point of it too. It would completely. I guess it's the first round, so it's a little different. Bean and McDermott have a propensity of drafting linebackers in the first round. Shaq Thompson, Luke Kuechly. We talk about this. That they've done that in the past. Well, not directly them, but they've been a part of an organization that have done that. So if you take a look at it in that respect, we talked about it during the live stream that the running back position has been devalued. I think there's no arguing that. But if you look at maybe the linebacker position is the defensive equivalent to the running back position. Drafting a linebacker in the first round after a year you draft a linebacker in the first round is your cheapest option. Yeah. Obviously not the completely cheapest because it's the first round pick. But your point being is if you wanted to stagger contracts of players, especially
nice way to do it.
I know it would be, but
nice way to do it.
Bush and Allen on this team, either one of those guys, I think changes the whole complexion of the team.
Yeah, I think it makes you feel like the defense isn't getting older every day, right? And I still feel like this defense current state is getting older every day. Because even though Josh Allen, the linebacker, doesn't play defensive end, he pressures like he plays defensive end. Like it's
I'll tell you right now, Paul. We're only going 3 up and 3 down. I understand that. Ed Oliver, I would have traded Ed Oliver and Cody Ford, who is our next pick, obviously. I would have traded Ed Oliver and Cody Ford for Devin White, who went to Tampa at 5.
I think that's fair.
Oh, my God.
I think that's fair. Well,
I love Oliver, too. Yeah. So let's
move down to Cody Ford.
Yeah, let's check this out a little bit.
Let's move down to Cody Ford. The Cody Ford's an interesting one, right? Because again, some need sprinkled around some other players.
Yes.
So the 3 ahead would be Juwan Taylor, the tackle from Jacksonville, who I think was incredibly overrated going into the NFL draft. So that's fine. Deebo Samuel, 36 to San Francisco, wide receiver. Greg Little, as we saw through Bills Embedded, went the pick right before Cody Ford, gave Bean a heart attack, having Carolina draft immediately before him.
Yeah, and he pumped his fist when they picked Little.
Yeah, he was thrilled. He was convinced
they were taking Ford. Yeah,
which makes me wonder if Little was on the board. Does Buffalo get out of there?
I remember doing the draft show, and I thought they were going to go for Little. I thought they were going to take Little, and because he seemed like hasn't really panned out. In Carolina, has not panned out in Carolina. But I mean, just so we could take a look at it, Sean Murphy Bunting, cornerback, was for Tampa, was taken out right after Ford. Trayvon Millen went to Oakland, and Dalton Reisner went to Denver. just before they took Drew Lock.
Mm-hmm.
Funny story. Anyway, but that all being said, the Ford pick, I don't know. It's a very polarizing pick.
Mm-hmm.
So, because then the Bills move up to get to the Cody Ford pick.
So
and then
the
Carolina jumped them,
pick,
or what?
Yeah. So let me go back. Let me go down to the transaction history real quick.
What do you think about the 3 picks before it, though? I mean, you talk about Greg Little, Deebo Samuel, and Jawan Taylor. Jawan Taylor has really not manifested into a lot. I mean,
yeah,
you're in Jacksonville. I mean, sometimes it's rough sledding down there.
Yeah, whatever to that. You know, like,
Deebo Samuel. I mean, the Buffalo
Deebo
Bills.
Samuel's a nice player. It's before Diggs. You still have Zay Jones on your team, right? Is you still have Zay Jones at this point?
You do.
Yeah. I mean,
this was the 2019 draft before the 2019 season, so you didn't have, or you just signed Brown and Beasley. So
so Deebo Samuel's. Yeah, Samuel's off the board for you. But I mean, we talked about this before. Brown and Beasley should not be the watermark for going after free agents in at the wide receiver position.
Yes.
Like, they were brought in because they were just new bodies and they were rebuilding. Like, let's not forget where we were when we signed Brown and Beasley. You were in a rebuilding mode, right? Like, I don't think it precludes drafting a wide receiver at all. I mean, if anything, you're going to throw as many darts against the wall as possible.
I mean, you take a look at it, though, Paul. I mean, we're talking about this, that, and the third. I mean, Cody Ford was drafted 38th. Mm-hmm. Drafted 51st, A.J. Brown.
Mm-hmm.
How does he change the complexion?
I know.
Because imagine this. You don't have Diggs. Let's say you don't have Diggs. Because I'm gonna throw 2 episodes all together. Okay? Mm-hmm. You don't have Diggs, right?
Yep.
You don't have Ford either.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You have the combination of Wyatt Teller,
mm-hmm.
A.J. Brown, and the pick that Minnesota used where Buffalo picked.
Mm-hmm.
You got Justin Jefferson and A.J. Brown on this team with Wyatt Teller. Are you happy with that?
It's an interesting conversation,
because
isn't it?
You think about it. If they don't take Cody Ford, they draft A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is a monster among men.
Right.
And then the following year,
mm-hmm.
they trade both of those things. They take Justin Jefferson with their first-round pick, and then they trade both of those other picks and take Trevon Diggs. Mm-hmm. So you have a CB2, 2 stud wideouts, and Wyatt Teller. Because you're not trading Teller to get the Diggs pick now.
Mm-hmm. Right. So here's how. So just to back up a little bit.
I know.
The way that the Bills got Cody Ford, yes, there was a trade up involved, but no, the team that was drafting I think it was the Jags. They weren't there originally. So I think, if memory serves me correctly, the Raiders were there. The Raiders traded their second round. They traded up and traded down with the Jags. The Jags traded down. The Raiders traded up. So the Jags had the Cody Ford pick originally.
Oh, okay.
I think it was one of those 2 teams. In either case, it doesn't really matter. Carolina jumped in with Seattle. Seattle originally had the Greg Little pick, and Buffalo traded up to get because they were at 40th. So Buffalo traded up to get behind Carolina. But all this happened before. I don't think Carolina owned that pick at the time of the pick.
But if you take a look at it, Cody Ford is listed as a tackle. So then after that, you had Dalton Reisner. Dalton Reisner was taken. Max Sharping was taken.
Yep.
That's the second round picks. And then the next tackle isn't taken until the 3rd round. That's Trey Pipkins. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it was kind of slim pickings at that point.
Sure.
I mean, even if you wanted to take a look at guards, I don't think there was a guards taken in the 2nd round, and that went to Michael Dieter was taken by the Dolphins in the 3rd round. But it was like, okay, it was slim pickings. Did the Buffalo Bills need to take Cody Ford at that time? I don't know. It's weird.
No, I don't think so. But they were excited to. I mean, sure, Ty Nsekhe is your starting right tackle at that point. Like, I don't blame you for taking Cody Ford.
Yeah.
I don't blame them for trading up because again, you start looking at it. AJ Brown is going to be on the board. Miles Sanders still would have been on the board.
Yes. DK Metcalf is on the board.
Wait, what? No.
Cody Ford was drafted with the 38th pick of the second round.
Metcalf's in at 64.
The 64th pick that's where they traded down to because they knew they could probably get him.
No, they traded down to 47. But yeah, Seattle traded. Yeah, Seattle had 2 picks in the third round.
Oh, they did. Okay, I see it now. But you draft DK Metcalf with that pick. I mean, to me, AJ Brown is a monster too. Like you draft Metcalf, and then the next year you draft Justin Jefferson, and you keep Wyatt Teller.
Well,
how different does this team look?
If you draft AJ Brown instead of Cody Ford, nobody blinks an eye. I understand they're like 12 picks apart, right?
Yes, true. Yeah.
Drafting AJ Brown 2 picks after Deebo Samuel makes sense.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Right.
But obviously, due to the situation that was involved, you just signed Brown and Beasley. You had to get some lineman help.
Yep.
That's what you do.
Yep. And the cheapest place to get that is always the draft. Always the draft.
And I love that Arizona took Andy Isabella 2 picks before Metcalf. That's nice job, guys.
We all liked Isabella.
I love Isabella.
Don't pretend like we didn't all like
I loved Isabella.
We all liked Andy Isabella.
But in this offense, though, does Brown or Metcalf solve anything?
Yeah. But you don't get Diggs. If you have Brown or Metcalf, you're not getting Diggs.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm saying, though, if you have Metcalf and Jefferson, do they still have the same impact in this offense in the EP system now with Brian Dable? Do they have the same
Metcalf
impact?
doesn't translate to the EP system.
That's what I'm saying. He's a monster, but he doesn't translate.
Yeah. Third round. Oh. Well, no, let's settle on Cody Ford. Cody Ford was the best player available. Yes or no?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I think it was the player that they drafted for need. They drafted for need there.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if you needed a running back, Miles Sanders was still there.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us to our third round pick of Devin Singletary. So before Singletary was taken, Paul, Dramont Jones, Jermaine Pratt, and David Montgomery, 1 pick right before the Buffalo Bills were taken before Singletary. And the 3 taken afterward were who?
Green Bay took Jace Sternberg, tight end. Washington, here's where it starts to hurt. Washington takes Terry McLaurin at 76.
And then
Chase Winovich goes to New England at 77. I know, right? Both those kind of hurt because I really like Chase Winovich an awful lot in the draft process. Like I really liked him. So Singletary, was he the best player on the board at the time?
No, I don't think I agree with that.
No.
I don't think I agree with that because of the fact of you look at it. Damian Harris was taken 13 picks after that. Mm-hmm. How much different, really, how different is Singletary and Harris? I mean, Montgomery got taken right before Chicago jumped in to get Montgomery. And we talked about it at the draft. Both of those guys had so much mileage in college. We're like, why are they doing like what? They're trading up for a guy like this. But then you look afterward, like, okay, Jermaine Pratt I could do without. David Montgomery, okay. Dramont Jones, okay. The ones before it, obviously. But Terry McLaurin and Chase Winovich.
Yeah.
You got to remember now, Shaq Lawson at this point is still on your team. And you just extended Hughes. So why would they even look at Chase Winovich?
Yeah.
I mean, so that's
right.
Obviously, we got to bring the perspective into it. But tell me about McLaurin. Like, how does he change your team?
Well, I mean, do you worry about Ohio State wide receivers a little bit? And do you worry about Ohio State wide receivers a little bit?
I worry about Ohio State quarterbacks and cornerbacks.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go. Now we're talking.
No, but
I mean, McLaurin is as dangerous a threat as they make. He's as dangerous a threat as they make.
Yes.
But in the EP system, is he just Robert Foster?
That's a great point. I love
kind of Robert Foster, right? Who is still on your team at this point and have looked to be an integral part of your team.
Yes. And probably could have been one of the reasons why they didn't pull the trigger on on some of these. But then you also have to look at the other side of the ball. Be like, listen, okay, all right, hold on. You guys have mentioned in 2 different episodes about drafting for need. Yes, we have. LaShawn McCoy was on your team, as well as you signed TJ Yeldon 3 days before the draft, and then you trade, or then you draft Devin Singletary. Like you already had running backs in the room. What are you doing? Was Ivory on the team? No,
not
Yeldon.
anymore.
No, you signed Yeldon.
Yeah, not anymore.
You had
right.
Ivory.
But now, mind you, they didn't trade up for the Singletary pick.
No,
so
I almost misspoke, but
Okay.
But my point being is this: that wasn't the biggest need at the time, was it?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But you also look at the line in the sand. Like we talk about it. There's a point in the round where there is just no more talent that is reasonable to get. Right.
Yes.
And after Chase Winovich, there's a graveyard. Right. Yes. It is not great after that. There's some nice players.
Miles Boykin is rotting away. He's rotting away in Baltimore.
Yeah. Bobby Okereke is there, and that's a nice player, but he's at 89. Like,
who went 96th? Oh, who's that? Dawson Knox? Okay, all right, I'm done. No, I'm kidding.
We'll get there. But is Singletary the best player in those out of those 7 players? Yeah, again, I'm gonna say that's a no. Right? That's a no. You wanted to get younger at the position, and you did. You drafted Devin Singletary. You got younger at the position. But did you really take the best player on the board? Again, I feel like the answer to that is still kind of no. I think people were excited that the Bills drafted a running back so high because McCoy's coming off, a pretty decent season, right? You don't see a need to draft anybody, right? You don't really see the need. With that being said, we looked at the Epinesa pick and then we look at the Singletary pick and they kind of feel the same to me, right? Yes. Where you just say, we got to get younger here.
Yes. But but then you sit there and you go, you got Damian Harris that goes however many picks afterward. Let me see. 13
picks. Harris was 87.
Yeah, he was 87. But then, and I don't mean to drive this nail through your heart, Paul. 4th round, Bryce Love and Justice Hill are sitting there.
Oh, God, don't talk to me about Bryce Love. Okay,
I'm just telling you. Then you got Benny Snell Jr., who had significant time. Tony Pollard.
Yep.
In the 4th round. So, running backs, you didn't have to take them as fast as you did. So if you have to fill a need, if you're saying just to purely get younger, you had other guys you can get younger with.
Sure.
Take Chase Winovich or Terry McLaurin there, and then with the pick that you used for Knox, take a running back. You know what I mean? Which another position you got to get
the same. The position still looked the same.
It did
for the most part.
It did.
Yep. Agreed. But as you get down to the Knox pick, you really start to see the talent degrade. Yeah, we have to. So Knox goes at 96th. Miles Boykin, as Mario mentioned, goes at 93 to Baltimore wide receiver. Jameel Dean goes to Tampa. He's a corner. And then O'Shane Zimmies, I don't know how to pronounce it, goes to the Giants at 95.
And then right after Knox, you got the the Rams took Bobby Evans, Jacksonville took Quincy Williams, then Tampa took Mike Edwards, a tackle and 2 safeties. Knox is the best pick there.
Yep.
You got a bunch of guys.
Not where I thought this conversation was going to go. No. Like, I look at Knox and I'm like, oh, man, I wish we could have gone a different direction there. But looking at what was there, I don't know if there's much.
I don't know.
But doesn't the Knox pick, again, speak to need at the position? You needed to leave this draft with the tight end.
You did. You
left with 2.
And you left with 2. Yeah. You look at – it's just a bunch of guys that were role players and guys that got cut initially for tight ends later in the draft. So it was like the last,
Here's where the kind of rubber meets the road for me, where I get a little frustrated. Okay. Right? You draft Dawson Knox because you need to leave this draft with a tight end. So you take one, you trade back into the 3rd, right? Because I'm pretty sure they traded back in to get this 3rd round pick. Okay, so you traded back in. The very next defensive end off the board is Max Crosby, and he doesn't go off the board till 106. Another great, really like Max Crosby a lot.
Yes.
Liked him, like Chase Winovich, right? They kind of fit the same mold to me.
Yep.
And you passed on both those types of players to grab Dawson Knox. And Winovich was where'd Winovich fall? Winovich was ahead of Devin Singletary.
Yep.
So you had two of the same type of players. The two you passed on those two players both twice.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at the defensive end position now, and we're in nearly the exact same position that we were back when the 2018 or 2019 draft happened. We're still in the same spot that we were. There's nothing any different except we got older, if you can believe that. We got older.
At the position. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the paint job that gets your second round pick. Now, okay, let's say you had to trade the second round pick. Or, all right, let's try this exercise, Paul. You get younger at the position of defensive tackle. You stay at 9, you take Oliver. Okay.
Mm.
My dreams of Josh Allen are gone. Okay. My dreams of Devin White are gone. Okay. So you end up taking DK Metcalf, and you leave the draft with DK Metcalf and Chase Winovich.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You go into the 2020 draft.
Mm-hmm.
You're not trading a first round pick for Stephon Diggs. And you might leave that draft with Justin Jefferson, let's say. So you got Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf. You still have Wyatt Teller. You have Chase Winovich. Mm-hmm. And you could draft J.K. Dobbins the following year. You don't have Devin Singletary.
Right.
What's wrong with that lineup? I don't see anything
all
wrong.
very possible.
Yeah, like
all very feasible.
And I know there's so many. Someone might watch this and be like, "Oh,
you poke holes through it all day long." But that's
absolutely.
kind of the fun of this is that you can look at it and say, "Okay, let's put our money where our mouth is," and say, "Did we really make the smartest move?" Like we herald the Diggs. We herald the Diggs pick of how good it looks right now, but 2 years from now, we may say, "Yeah, I mean, Diggs in 2020 was great. I wish we'd gotten that Diggs in 2021 or 2022." Or like we can look at this in a bubble and say, these moves made a lot of sense at the time. And a lot of these picks made a lot of sense at the time. I'm not going to dispute that they didn't make sense at the time. But again, you look at what you do, like we sell it all the time, like it's best player available, but it's like 50-50.
It really is. Because, I mean, you're starting to draft for need, you're starting to draft for that. But I think the one thing that we'll always harken on, that you and I will always agree, the reason why the Diggs pick was so sexy, or the Diggs trade was so sexy for the Bills, was because he still had 4 years left. Yeah. And for all picks, first round picks have a 5-year option, but all picks have a 4-year contract. Yeah.
You were replacing him.
You were really, a first round pick for a 4-year deal for Stephon Diggs. I think if it was a 2-year deal, I could say it being, whoa, wait a minute.
Right.
You're trading away a 4-year player for a 2-year player.
Well, and again, the Bills were smart there, because you look at Diggs and you're going to say, okay, we can either have Stephon Diggs or we could have the 5th receiver in the draft. I feel like we're going to take Stephon Diggs.
Because of Diggs' huge year, it kind of camouflaged what Justin Jefferson did as a rookie. I mean, that was a heck of a year.
Again, long term, 2 years from now, you make the comparison between Diggs and Jefferson. We might be having a different conversation, but we're not right now.
No, we're not doing.
No, we're not right now.
Not with 145 catches that he had or whatever it was.
So I think where we are with this is this. First off, this is a really fun exercise to kind of pick apart.
Oh yeah.
But going into draft season, right? We talk about the Bills taking best player available. Got to take best player available. Got to take best player available. I think in those first 3 rounds, you really can pick it apart and say it's like 50-50 that you're going to get best player available.
Yeah. You can take a look at it and say, what do they really need?
Well, does that make a pick for a guard, linebacker, or defensive end just that more likely this year? Or are they really going to go best player available? You probably book
the first 3 rounds. Those are the positions you're going to go. I mean, you want to go 50-50, but
you want to bet on that?
I never bet you, but here's the point. Let's take a look at the first round picks that they picked. Okay. You needed a corner. You got Tre'Davious White. You needed a quarterback and a linebacker. You got Josh Allen and Tremaine Edmonds. You needed a defensive tackle. You got Ed Oliver. You needed wide receiver help. You're like, you know what? Like you just said, do you want the 5th best wide receiver? No. Yeah. Let's see what we can do.
Right.
Do I want to bet that they'll go guard, defensive end, and what else? Linebacker?
Yeah, just first 3 rounds in any order. They walk away in the first.
This is your payback for the wide receiver pick that happened.
Which most certainly is. Yeah.
Yes, I will bet you.
Yes. All right, we'll discuss.
We'll discuss.
In the comments section, leave what you think the conditions of the bet should be. Like what's the prize at the end of the road?
I don't care about gas station chicken wings. You do, apparently.
That was disgusting with Cucumber Ranch at 7:30 in the morning. Gas station chicken wings.
And it was cold in my car, too. I remember
it was disgusting. In a Tom Brady jersey, no less.
Hey, you got to pay the piper, bro.